Farmers today are facing rising costs, volatile markets, and extreme weather. The A Better Way to Farm podcast digs into strategies to help you take control of farm inputs and maximize profit so your farm can thrive for generations. Remember to take advantage of our free resources at abetterwaytofarm.com. Now, from America's Heartland, here's your host.
The timing of K application, something that should be considered. Hey guys, Rod here at A Better Way to Farm, where we increase yields and improve profits. I subscribe to a lot of different email services so that I can get more information, and one of the places that I get information from is the University of Minnesota Extension Service. They bring me a deal each week, and I take a look at it and try to peruse through, and they've got something here. On this one, it was entitled, "Is the Timing of K Application Something That Should Be Considered?" Before I ever read the article, it got me thinking. I go back, one of my first mentors started me. He talked about the fact that he never wanted to see potassium chloride go on in the spring. He felt like it was bad, that it shoved a lot of chloride into the plants, and that had detrimental effects on yield, and some of the things that came with that he was not a fan of. And, you know, for 30 some years, I've listened to people debate this, argue about it, talk about it, and, oh, no, it's fine, it's no big deal, it's going to be okay, just do it whenever, it won't make any difference. And so I got to thinking back to all those things that he taught me and replaying those and stuff that we've taught over the years and maybe we haven't recently spoken on. And I want to talk about this tonight. I'm going to talk about this article, and then I'm going to go in and do some other things on potassium. So I just hope you sit back and take what we have to say here and just say, hey, let's look at this with an open mind, and what's in this that can make your farming operation more money. That's the bottom line here, is I think this day and age, everyone in the industry needs to be trying to figure out how it is that we're going to put more into the bottom line for the growers. The rest of us are going to have to take a seat and sit down and say, what do we got to do to help these guys? Because we know, we've watched what they've done to the markets the last few days here, and I'm not going to get into all the politics. What we're here to say is we need to work on how do we control the controllables that are in our power. And politics isn't one of them. The things that we control is how do we manage our inputs? How do we manage our time? How do we manage our equipment? What do we got to do different? And so let's dive in here to see what the University of Minnesota had to say. And this is really good. And I'm going to read it almost verbatim. So bear with me. While many growers opt for P and K applications in the fall, applying any fertilizer months ahead of the crop when it needs it can present some risk for lessening the availability of the nutrient as it has more time to react with the soil. Side note, for those of you guys who are farming in a high pH, this is really your enemy. That calcium, that high pH is grabbing hold of those nutrients and playing havoc with them and tying them up. They're getting caught in the soil chemistry, and they are not there when it's time for that crop to try and grow. Past AFREC, that would be the Minnesota Agricultural Fertilizer Research and Education Council, who funded this study. Past AFREC funded research has shown that spring application of phosphorus resulted in higher corn yield when compared to fall application. Oh, now all of a sudden we're coming back and saying, oh man, we got to get her done. Let's get all that NP and K out there. Let's blow it on in October and get her done. You know, guys know what I think of that. They got to go and plant your corn in November probably too, because, you know, the soil's working good. You got to get her done, right? They have just said that using spring-applied phosphorus, even in a dry broadcast, results in better yields. The next step was to look at whether the same can be said about potassium, and this gets interesting. Past research has shown the availability of potassium measured by soil test does change over time, where the soil test values are higher in the spring and lower in the summer at points in time where the crops are taking up high amounts of potassium. Sidebar, and also when it gets dry, because we know that, I'll come back to this, but potassium is less available when it's dry. From the perspective of timing, I have not found that the soil test varies in June regardless of whether the K was applied in the fall or in the spring. In contrast, soil test phosphorus was almost always less when comparing fall versus spring fertilizer applications in high pH soils. Here we go again, what I had just said. In effect, the K should be available to the crop it is applied regardless of when the fertilizer was applied. In total, corn and soybean yield were evaluated at 9 locations from 22 to 24. Soil potassium was 150 or less, 150 parts per million or less in all but 2 of these locations, and those 2 were less than 200 but greater than 150. In total, there were 2 locations where grain corn yield was significantly increased by potassium and 4 locations where the grain yield was increased in soybeans. Time of fertilizer application affected corn grain yield at 1 of the 9 locations, while soybean grain yield was impacted by the time of fertilizer application at 4 of the 9 locations. Here's where it gets interesting. We know that spring applying phosphorus is better. It makes the yield go up in both corn and beans. But for soybeans, the fall application of potassium out-yielded spring application 4 times. And guys, it was significantly different according to this. And I highlighted this. The decrease in soybean yield was expected as past research has shown that the chloride in KCl or potash can negatively affect soybean yield. One goal of this project was to see if fall application could reduce the uptake of chloride by the soybean plant as the chloride anion moves into the plant as the plant takes up water and uptake is not regulated. If chloride is present, the plant will take it up. Plant tissue tests have shown significant less chloride in the plant tissue when KCl is applied in the fall. Therefore, those applying potash ahead of soybean avoiding spring application may reduce the risk for potential yield loss from the excess uptake of chloride by the soybean plant. I would still recommend not applying, this is not me, this is the author here, funded by the state of Minnesota. And what he's saying is, I would still recommend not applying more than 100 pounds of KCl per acre ahead of a soybean crop. Since the data shows not negative impacts on corn grain yield, very high applications can be split with the majority of the KCl going ahead of the corn crop to reduce potential yield reductions. Guys, let me summarize that. They're saying spring applied phosphorus is better than fall applied phosphorus because it's reacting in the soil. We know phosphorus wants to tie up. It wants to marry up with something, with anything it can get its hands on. And so consequently, we know that's not a good idea. It would appear that potassium chloride has no negative effect on the corn yield in the spring, but it does have a negative impact on soybeans if it's spring applied. That ends the reading of the gospel according to the University of Minnesota. Now let me go off and talk about some of the things that I want you to consider. We're going to hit the potassium thing again. Guys, number 1, do we need it? Absolutely. Absolutely. We know that potassium is important. It impacts crop health. It impacts standability. It has so many things to do. I get a newsletter from a lot of different places. And in this, on one page, they talked about the fact that they're still suggesting that you need to have applied nitrogen of 1.2 pounds per bushel for corn. 1.2 pounds per bushel. 2 pages later, in that same newsletter, and I've got it laying on my desk, 2 pages later, they come in and they say, and when you use a lot of nitrogen, it really increases the need for potassium because you have to have extra K when you have all that excess nitrogen. So if I sell you too much nitrogen, now I can sell you too much potassium because that's what it takes to offset it. And might I add, we also know that when we do that, it messes with the zinc in the plant. Also, now we need to over-apply zinc. So what am I saying? Number 1, be judicious, guys. Use nitrogen at a rate that you need. We are adamant about getting guys to head towards 0.8 pounds of applied N per bushel of corn, 0.7, 0.6. And let's be honest, there's a lot of money laying on the table when you figure out how to grow a bushel of corn on 0.6 or 0.7 as opposed to 1.0 or even 1.2. Second thing, when we don't overuse the nitrogen, other things work better. We know how that impacts other nutrient uptake. We know how that impacts yield. I mean, there's studies out here. There was a lady, I think was from Minnesota, did a very interesting on-farm research deal talking about that they had planted with they put anhydrous on at an angle and they'd plant it across the rows, and all season long it looked better right where the row crossed over the anhydrous bar. And that was, it looked better. It was darker green. It was 1 leaf, 2 leaves ahead all season long. So she went out, she harvested near the band of anhydrous, and then she harvested in between, obviously by hand. And there was a significant yield change, about 20 bushel in favor of being away from where the anhydrous was banded. This isn't me slamming anhydrous. Someone asked, what's my opinion of anhydrous ammonia? You can't make methamphetamine without it. Let's just leave it at that. Guys, I have a bias, okay? I wouldn't trade 2 cents a pound or 20 cents a pound for my eyesight. We had that deal downstate Illinois a year ago where that family got killed because an anhydrous truck was involved in an accident. No fault of his. Didn't change the fact that 2 people driving cars drove into the cloud and got killed. Didn't change the fact that a dad and 2 of his children in their own home were killed by it. I just think it's really risky, okay? And on top of that, let me just say this. Let me challenge you. Split an 80. Half of it, you do what you're doing. We work with guys that use anhydrous, okay? That's not the deal. We do that. They know that I would prefer they not. And I challenge you, split an 80. Left half, go out there and do it with 28 or 32 or urea or whatever you might want to do, but not NH3. On the other side, continue to use anhydrous and follow it for 5 years. That 40 acres isn't going to make or break you either way, okay? But at the end of the 5 years, watch what's happening. And when you watch what happens, I think you'll say, maybe I need to look at this differently. But that being said, in regards to this potassium thing, you guys know that I enjoy my time with Dr. Mulvaney. You guys are well aware of the fact that we are not potassium chloride fans. I don't have an issue with potassium sulfate. As a matter of fact, if you need potassium, I would have you dry broadcast. If that's what you're bent on doing, I would have you dry broadcast potassium sulfate. I think that's a great product. Yes, I know it's more expensive. Use the same dollar amount, not the same pounds. Use the same dollar amount. Watch your results. Let me just say that. Dr. Mulvaney would tell you that the more potassium chloride you can put on, probably the less available potassium you're going to have. Let's talk about why. Why is that? Well, I talked earlier that the potassium soil tests always go down in the summer because your soil is like an accordion. And when it gets dry, it compacts and it contracts. And how do we get nutrients into the plant? And particularly, how do we get potassium into the plant? And when we do that, the roots go down, hair roots grow out, feeder roots grow in between the soil colloids or in between the platelets, and they exude an acid, and it sucks, that acid goes out and sucks the nutrients, then it comes back in because it gets the nutrients to release off of the soil. As that soil gets tighter, we end up with less and less nutrient coming into the plant. We end up with less and less available nutrients, especially potassium. That's why in a drought, K is one of the first deficiencies that shows up. Okay, and so therefore we know that if we spread potassium chloride, and it does help with compaction, it does make it worse. It's a salt to the soil. Guys, do this. Go get some potassium chloride, cut a potato in half, lay it on a paper plate, half of it sprinkle potassium chloride on it, the other half don't do anything. Just watch it for 4 or 5 days. Watch what it does to the moisture in the potato. Is it scientific? No. Is it eye-opening? Absolutely. We don't want to dry our soil out. We don't want to do things that work against us. We want everything we can working in our favor. So potassium sulfate would be a choice. If we need potassium, I'm a huge fan of potassium thiosulfate. If you happen to be someone who's got some kind of a banding deal, a 2x2 coulter on your planter, and you're putting down some nitrogen, putting some potassium sulfate, that tremendous opportunity to force feed potassium into that plant. Guys, don't lose sight of the fact that potassium in the soil, according to the soil scientists that we study, say that potassium in that soil will not become available till the soil temperature gets up to 75 degrees. I doubt that any of you watching this are sitting around going, I'm not going to plant anything until it gets to 75 degrees. I know guys in Minnesota that have soybeans in the ground already, okay? I know that there are people from Cape Girardeau, Missouri, clear into Minnesota who have already planted soybeans. I know that when this mess passes here, somewhere I'm predicting around April 10th to April 14th, we'll be running wide open here in southeast Iowa. It looks like the moisture is going to blow through. We're going to be headed into a spell of drier, warmer temperatures, and I think people will be planting corn like there's no tomorrow, and I'm all for that, okay? But if we're going to do the right things here, guys, remember this. When I was up at Scott's in South Dakota, and guys, we're going to be posting our field days soon, and there's going to be a ton of field days that you can come and take a look at the products in action with A Better Way to Farm. But when I was up at Scott's this summer, or fall there, and we were in the root pit, and I said that, that Dr. Mulvaney talks about the fact that in the top 6 feet, there's 360,000 pounds of potassium. And someone came on and argued and said, that's not true. It's only 40,000 pounds. And I just kind of tilted my head and said, are you listening to you? Okay, assume Mulvaney is completely wrong. I don't think he is, but let's pretend that he is. The top 6 feet, about 360,000 pounds. However, let's assume it's only 40. Are you aware of the fact that 40,000 pounds of available potassium will grow you a good crop? The question becomes, how do we get it? And if we want to build K levels, let's do this. Let's do everything correctly. Let's use everything we can to drive roots. What drives roots? Getting it planted right, having the planter calibrated, getting it deep enough, getting it off to a good start, maybe using a pre-starter, some kind of a seed emergency that'll help us get up and running. As Karen calls it, hey, we're talking about a secret sauce. If you'd like to know about a secret sauce, and Karen will have somebody reach out to you. So we do that. We come in, we use row place starter with the right micronutrients. Guys, we have to find the limiting factors. We can only do that with a soil test. What are we going to do? Well, I can tell you what we're going to do. Just today, our team had 5 new people open accounts and come and work with us. We have soil tests that are being pulled that are already in that we should be able to see results from. And guys are saying, yes, we know we need to do something different. Help us find a better way to do this. And we can do that. But when we put those micronutrients in there and we drive those roots down 6 feet and we grab a bunch of that potassium that's down in the soil deep and we bring it up into the stock, and we leave it in the residue and it recycles, that's how we're going to build those levels. Getting things work, guys, life is simple. Figure out how it works and get on the right side of it. Stop fighting it. And so, yeah, I'm a little jazzed up. This really got me thinking. It kind of took me a walk down memory lane, if you will. And I got to thinking about my first mentor and the things that he told me. And guys, what we're bringing you here is, unfortunately, there's not a lot new. What we're bringing you is a lot that's old. Things that we have known for a long time that have been buried. Things that are, I can't remember, I think it was Churchill said, the problem with the truth is that it's the truth. In the end, there it is. You can deride it, you can hate it, you can talk poorly about it, but in the end, there it is. Guys, the truth is, first dollar spent on fertility should be row placed. If you have money to burn, your budget says, man, I'd like to spend a bunch of money, then you dry broadcast, okay? Your first dollar spent should be not on over-applying NP and K, but using the right amount and then putting on micronutrients. Do you need zinc? Do you need manganese? Do you need boron? 95% of you need boron. We know that based on the stats of what we're seeing. Is your mag to K ratio screwed up one way or the other? We can talk about that and say, hey, here's how we're going to fix that. It's not hard. We're never going to fix it in the soil, but we're going to fix it for the growing season, and it's relatively easy and inexpensive to do. So guys, I know I've went on here with a lot of different stuff, and I started out by talking about potassium, and I want to go back to that. Spring applied potash on soybeans is a bad idea, plain and simple. I think potassium chloride being applied, period, is not a good idea. I think potassium sulfate is fine. I think potassium thiosulfate is a fantastic choice. I think using a high K starter, not a 1034O, not a something 3, not a something 5, but a product like a 315-19-3 and 816-11-2, some row applied potassium early to force feed it into that plant, to carry that plant through, will help you have better yields. University of Nebraska at Lincoln published the study. 175 bushel corn, it's going to uptake somewhere in the neighborhood of 255 pounds of potassium. 175 takes 255 into the plant. That's what you got to do to get it. To move from 175 to 250, the uptake of potassium has to go from 255 to 475. In other words, if you want to increase your yield by only 50%, then you're going to have to increase your K uptake by almost 100. Guys, those are facts. Inconvenient, there it is. In the end, the truth is still the truth. And the only way we're going to get adequate K into that plant is to shove it in there early. Liquid row placed in the trench. Maybe you want to put some more 2x2 or with some kind of a coulter that's close to the plant. But let's force feed the potassium. When we do that, what's going to happen? We're going to get a healthier plant. We're going to have better standability. Hopefully, we cut back on overusing nitrogen and we get better utilization of it that way. And all of a sudden, things work better. That's what we're all about. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in. It's always an honor. We're sitting here, and I just ran across this article again tonight. I printed it off, and it's like I was trying to find some time. We've been working, selling, and shipping and talking to guys on the phone. I've literally sat at my desk for 2 weeks, which is not something that I relish, but it's what needs to be right now. We love working with you growers. I love talking to all of you guys. And if we can be of service to you, reach out. We have a whole team of people across the United States that are anxious, that are studying, that are working hard, and they want to help you. Had a brand new person call today from South Dakota. I'm looking really forward to her joining the team and getting to work together. And we had a district manager who lives less than 90 miles from her. And so Scott's taking good care of her to get things lined out and get them started on the program. But guys, there's just so much here, and our heart is so full. I'm well aware of what they've done to the bean market the last 2 days. I'm well aware that corn at 386 is not a good thing, but here's what I know. I can't control anything that's happening on those markets, okay? I can sit around and whine, or I can say if corn is going to be sold for $3.86 a bushel, I need to figure out how to grow it for $2.86 a bushel. And I may have to make some hard decisions, To grow for $2.86 a bushel, I may have to say, I ain't paying that much for rent. I'm going to back up. I may have to say, we've always done it. I literally talked to someone else who's involved in a family operation, and one of the people involved in that operation literally said, if I can't do it the way we've always done it, I'm going to quit. That's a choice, okay? That's a choice. It's not a choice that's good for the next generation. And I think we got to be willing to say, what can we do different? What can we do better? How can we make this? And guys, one of the things is to take what we know that the university is telling us here and saying, dude, fall applied K is better for soybeans. And I'm going to go a step farther, and the university isn't saying this, but I'm going to tell you liquid applied K without chloride in it is your friend. If you'd like to talk about what you can do, how we can help you, reach out. That means that you're not looking for the secret sauce for the seed treatment, but the reach out is going to say, reach out. We'd like to take a look at what a better way to farm can do for our operation. We would love that. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's an honor to get to talk to you. And guys, we just really do hope you're having a better day.